That seems to me that might be
Halder
the case.
taking the cut through. Here we go. He's going to close in on Silva. He took the cut through on the corkscrew last time too. Is he going to do that again here?
Let's see, he's awful close to Silva. Silva goes a little bit deep. He is going to cut right through, comes in front of him, but he's a little bit out of sorts. Car manages to get itself back together, and Nico Silva tries to cut back on him, gives him another little hello, sneaks inside, down into turn 10, and makes a pass. I can't remember the last time I saw a pass into that turn.
It's going to take a brave move for the four chicanes here. No side-by-side yet from Sanchez. Trangarade will have to hold on through a tight section. White flag coming to checkered flag now. Sanchez needs a big corner exit here. Hard through the corner towards the final chicane. A slide for Trangarade. He hits the turtles. Sanchez with the pull. Side by side, they all slide. Trangarade wins it. My goodness, what happened?
Is that going to be enough to counteract anything? That's a battle for the lead as well. Frisha trying around the outside now. He's going to try to hold it out, but again, Paulie Partsinen able to hold it out. Oh my goodness.
And in the back, you can just see that is Juan Costa looking out of place, trying to get on the inside of Jukka Talonen as they come around side by side and just shoved out to the grass. Thomas Simon has struck. He struck again, the second time in two corners. On the inside, going around the Lesbo 1 into Lesbo 2. Jukka Talonen and Thomas Simon going at it. As we jump back to the car number 66 in ninth position, that is going to be Steve Gray, looking to make the move on Alexander Wilfred on the outside, making it nice and tidy. Hold on to your hats, come on. Don't do it now, gentlemen. It's still a bit too early. Oh, on the inside, it's still holding. So he's hugging the inside curve as much as he can. Steve Dwyer on the last corner of the last lap makes a move and overtakes to take 8th position.
I think he has as well, but here comes the move for Philip Hammer. It's going to be down to the inside, going through the first corner, done and dusted. Lucetta tries to fight him back a little bit, but it's a little bit too late. But no, Lucetta's going to have the inside coming up the rise to Druids.
And in through Druids goes the slides. Philip Hammer's not able to make it effective on the outside, but on the inside.
Hey there, I'm Nicholas Dubois, co-founder of Advanced SimRacing. We are a Canadian company. So what we did here today is for a real petrol head. He's really passionate about cars, as you can see behind me. We did a turnkey solution for him based on his needs. We try to gather as much information as we can on our client. And like we did today, we install a D-Box system. We install ultra-wide cube control steering wheel. We try to provide the best quality for your budget. So let's say if you want a budget of 10 grand, we're gonna give you something that's the best for 10 grand. If you want 20 grand, then we always try to stay within your boundaries. We do try to make it as easy as possible. So the client, once we install everything, it's pretty much gonna be a turnkey. So he's gonna press start on his computer, and right after, we'll try to explain everything, how it goes, how it works, and then he's ready to go. Our aluminum is from USA, treated in Canada, cut in Canada. So we do sand all our aluminum piece just to make sure the powder coat sticks to it. And that's one of the reasons why we use powder coat, is to make sure you have the best aluminum finish in the industry. And our quality is beyond what you can get with any other competitors right now. We are really, really passionate about all the gear, all the cockpits, all the sim hardware, and that's why we want to create something that's really going to reflect our passion into our product. Come visit us at advancedsimracing.com. You can always reach us if you have any questions. You can call us, you can text us, you can go on Facebook, like our page, ask us questions over there, and we'll make sure to answer every questions there is. We are very passionate about what we do, and we try to make it as easier for you to go into the sim racing world, because there's a lot of gear, there's a lot of options, but let us guide you through your process, and let's hope you'll be an advanced sim racing customer.
Team Hype's top 4 sweep at Atlanta was surely a declaration of intent. There is no messing around this year, and the A-game has been brought to this new Cup car. But a race at Talladega may be more difficult to control. Will the chaos of super speedway racing break up the dream team? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 2 of the PRL NASCAR Cup Series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is DJ Clark. Behind the scenes is our director, Zach Johnson, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Most oval racing fans already know their way around Talladega, but for those who are new to this incredibly unique style of circuit, let's enter a track guide. Welcome to Talladega Superspeedway. Not satisfied with his incredible accomplishments with Daytona, Bill France Sr. plucked up a plot of land in Alabama east of Birmingham and had one goal: make it faster. At 2.66 miles and with 33 degrees of banking, he succeeded. Not only is the banking steeper and the lap longer than Daytona, but the track itself is wider as well. As you'd expect, this makes for one of the most unique styles of racing motorsports has ever seen. The slipstream allows drivers to stay with one another so easily that it becomes less about the speeds each driver can reach and more about the strategy of racing in a pack. Bump drafting is a technique in which the car behind actually pushes the car in front so that both are able to reach higher speeds. And side drafting is another in which the drivers use the air off the sides of their cars to slow their opponents down. Staying out of trouble is always a difficult aspect of superspeedway racing, and it's not uncommon to see drivers intentionally move to the back of the pack to avoid the chaos. In fact, the high speeds make large wrecks so hard to avoid that the term "the big one" has become commonplace to refer to the almost inevitable multi-car pileups the circuit is known for. Also, entering pit lane is its own skill, which requires practice in order to slow the car up as quickly and safely as possible. Keeping the car clean and in contention is the main goal for much of the event. Then the final few laps, it's a race to the line, with any alliances usually dissolving and the driver's urge to win taking over. Known for gobbling up cars and ruining a driver's good day in the blink of an eye, Talladega truly holds the title of the biggest and baddest track on the NASCAR circuit. Well, DJ, this is going to be interesting with this next-gen Cup car, but how are we expecting them to handle here at Talladega?
Well, Joe, as you said, we are really venturing into a lot of unknowns with the next gen here, but the way we really anticipate this going is that low line really being the dominant line. If you can get a run of maybe 3 or 4 cars to sort of plug up the low line, that's really going to allow for you to hold on to that lead. We've definitely seen some of the middle grooves starting to work a little bit, maybe the high groove, but it's still going to be the standard restrictor plate racing that we're used to seeing. Look for a lot of bump drafting. Look for a lot of teaming up with cars, as you really want to have that draft behind you as well as in front of you to try to get as much speed as possible.
All right. Well, we'll see if it's like the days of old or if this is a brand new beast for them. But before we get to the racing, we want to remind you that our broadcast is brought to you by ASR. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminum profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. Visit them at advancedsimracing.com.
It's also sponsored by RaceLab. RaceLab helps you to improve your driving skills. With modern overlays, race statistics, and native VR integration, you can get the best out of iRacing. Start using it now for free at racelab.app.
Today's broadcast is also proudly sponsored by ButtKicker. ButtKicker products add an incredible immersion and realism to any game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Check them out at thebuttkicker.com.
And finally, the PRL NASCAR Cup Series is brought to you by NinjaTrader. Ready to compete against the financial markets? Supporting over 60,000 users across the globe, NinjaTrader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. NinjaTrader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, and trade simulation. Visit ninjatrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance.
Now, as we take a look at the championship after our first round, you'll probably notice something with those teams. And as I said, the top four were all Team Hype drivers. Different sister teams, of course, with Conquer and Acosta teaming up and O'Brien and Walter being together, but not much split between them, with the typical first round putting them just about in the order that they finished. Byron and McDonald rounding out the top five. The only driver not on a Team Hype team, and it is actually an independent, so he doesn't have a team. We have the team standings in the meantime, and I can take a wild guess at how this looks, DJ.
Well, it's going to be some Team Hype domination there. Private label Team Hype Black leading the way with 92 points back, and only 4 points back from them is private label Team Hype, the full-on team. A decent ways back, SGE eSports Slipstream, 19 points back with Carm Ramrod and Dirty South Racing in a nice little battle there for fourth. But all three of those non-private label Team Hype teams, they're really going to have their work cut out for them, as we saw just how dominant they were last time out.
Now, for today's race, if you're tuning in for the first time, welcome. But it's going to be pretty typical fare if you're used to seeing this series. It's 90 laps, and that will be limited by time as well to 90 minutes. They have 5 total tire sets that they are allowed to use. Not as big of an issue around a track like this. However, the big difference from last season and many previous seasons here in the Cup Cars is that it is a fixed setup. Now, it is the same in that there is no spare car, so if they get damaged, they're going to just have to come in and get it banged away on, and that is a big problem around here, where you need the car to be as pristine as possible, but there's still 24 incidents before you are booted from this race, so want to make sure and not make too hard a contact with your rivals as you bump draft around here and rack up those 4 X's. You can see them practicing their pit in. Probably could be a big difference, especially if we get those green flag runs here in today's race, DJ, trying to make sure you really master that pit entry.
Yeah, it can be incredibly difficult just coming in from such massive speed. Your brakes really aren't up to temperature, so you've got to be a little bit careful about it, bringing that car down to speed to do everything right. As we watch here, a little bit of an example of exactly what that bump draft is going to look like, as we've got a couple guys there, Dinkle, Sumner, and I believe that's Acosta up there in front, just showing off a little bit.
Absolutely. Now, if you tuned in for the first rounds in Atlanta, you may have seen a bit of a messy race at times, and with that, sometimes you can get penalties. In this case, we have some drivers who are not allowed to qualify. Those include Danny Cervantes, Greg Wilson, Ryan Goodell, and Andrew Payne. They'll be given EOL penalties at the start of this race. This is perhaps one of the better ones to be given that EOL penalty, I suppose, as it is definitely possible to try and make inroads up through the fields, but even still, they're going to be susceptible to accidents if they do happen here today, especially early on. And there's some more of those practice runs down into the pit entry, especially in a group where they don't want to get loose around one another, and things can certainly build into a bad situation if they make contact with one another there. So just a few more seconds left, and then we head off into the qualifying session, where each driver will get 2 laps, but they'll probably have to get out there pretty quickly, as they do only get 5 minutes, and that's about the entire qualifying session you'll need here at Talladega to make that one happen. Speaking of all that's been going on in the championship. One thing we do want to mention is that they have a few prizes this season for drivers. This is not just for the fast drivers. This is for those attending 7 races out of the 10 in the season, and they're eligible for prizes from ASR. Big thank you to them for providing these. They've got 2 ASR3 cockpits from Advanced SimRacing, $1,000 in value for those. The ButtKicker Gamer 2 kit is $180 value to whoever gets that. And then they have 23-month pro memberships of RaceLab Apps for $280 in value. So definitely worth showing up. I expect we'll see a lot of attendance this season because of some great prizes on hand as we now get going on our qualifying. And very quickly, drivers try to get out there in what is a rather early morning rising sun for today's event, DJ.
Yeah, it is, and that's going to change things up a little bit for these drivers. It'll be a little bit cooler on track. You can see their track temperature is only 82 degrees Fahrenheit. That means that even with the long lap that you get around here, you're going to have to be a little bit careful about those tire temperatures, especially on the start of the race. If somebody wants to make a very aggressive move, maybe changing lanes, something like that, they're going to have to watch out for it. What is nice, though, is that 52% humidity, 52% humidity, rather, that is going to be helpful. That means there's going to be more air for these cars to cut through. That means the draft is going to be more effective. We could see a little bit more passing as a result of that.
Looks like the first one across is going to be Trent Dinkle that we're watching on screen here in the 501, taking his Napa machine down the back stretch. And interesting that he's hanging down on the low side. Has that changed with this new car? Because we're used to seeing drivers stay up on the high side on the first lap to try and build up speed.
Yeah, it is a little bit interesting there to see that. It may just be trying to go for it. And it genuinely may be a thing that they could be working it out. We're also hearing from some of our people behind the scenes that sometimes this first lap may actually be a little bit faster, Talladega being long enough to build up enough speed before you cross over the start-finish.
First lap for Dinkle, a 51.861. Now everybody tries to match it. Burris is the next one. He's about a 10th off as Papineau puts himself on the front row. They all start trickling in, and it looks like Josh Daniels, the first one to dethrone the 501. He goes up to the top spot.
And Dinkle is pulling off. That's a little bit of a surprise there. I'm not sure why he would do that. That is effectively going to end his run, so he's clearly okay with his time. He's going to let it sit. I see Charles Sumner coming across the line into P14 right now. Byron McDonald, after that good run last time out, he's up to 5th. Thomas Emissay is up to 8th right now. Robert Besaw up into 9th.
Baron Hilton just coming across the line now, 52.6 for him. It's going to put him into 21st. Matthew Long coming down. Let's see what he's got as he crosses over the tri-oval and across the start-finish line, which, let's not forget, is after this tri-oval. 51.850. That is pole for the 28.
Oh, that's a great lap there for Matthew Long. He'll be very, very happy with that one. Skip Gandy also putting in a good time to come in behind him in 6th place. It looks like that lone line being preferred by a lot of drivers out here. Taylor Stout with a good time, only a thousandth of a second off. He puts himself into P2.
Waiting on Abner Acosta to put one down as well. There you see him on screen in the number 5. Through the tri-oval himself. I think he's the last one that is able to put his first time in. Might have a few others that are trying to set their second lap. His first one is going to be only good enough for 33rd. Now he ducks down to the bottom line. 57.171 for him. That's way off a regular time, actually. What happened there?
Well, I wonder if that is just how much speed you lose hanging around the high side there for him. And now maybe that he's going low, he's going to hope to gain up some speed. But as you said, Joe, that is not a time that we are used to seeing from Abner Acosta. And I would be very, very surprised if he stays down there a full 5 seconds off the pace.
Looks like Guerra is going to be coming across next. We're following Acosta to the line, but Joao Guerra 51.924. That's going to put him in 17th. And up next, Acosta will cross the line. 51.8 for him, much more representative, but still only into 8th place. That's not going to be pole position for him. Is there anybody else able to cross? And it does not appear to be the case. So that means our grid is now set here for round 2 of the PRL NASCAR Cup Series. And Matthew Long manages to get himself the 2 bonus points for pole position. He'll start up at that top spot with Taylor Stout next to him, and Josh Daniels starting from 3rd. Trent Dinkle will be on the outside of row 2. Waldo Walden will start from 5th as James O'Brien starts 6th, and it's Skip Gandy P7 and Abner Costa, as we mentioned, P8. Luke Christian is on the inside of row 5. Eric Papineau will be in 10th.
Starting off in 11th, it's going to be Byron McDonald, followed by last time's winner Josh Conker, with Pat Harvey in 13th and Richard Regan Jr. in 14th. Scotty Johnson will be lining up in 15th, followed by Mark Kalin in 16th, and then row 9 behind them is Tom Emise and Joao Guerrera in 18th. Adam Zemke will be 19th, and Robert Bissaw Jr. rounds out your top 20.
21st goes to Patrick Cowgill. It's Daniel Alley in the 22nd spot, followed by Bob Clement. You've got Jose Medina then in 24th. CM Pennington 25th, and James Durr in 26th. Pete Bladon will start in 27th. He'll be flanked by Carlos Romero in 28th. You've got Baron Hilton and Taylor Burris in 29th and 30th.
In 31st, it'll be Chris Hudson, followed by Charles Sumner with Mike Witt in 33rd. And then we get those drivers that had the EOL penalties from the last time out at Atlanta. Danny Cervantes in 34th, followed by Matthew Aubry in 35th, Aaron Self 36th, and tail end Charlie on today's field, Drew DeWeese in 37th.
So a decent-sized field here today for the race. We're waiting for the pace car to lead them around, but we got a few onboard cams for us. So let's take a look at that. Is Trent Dinkle going to be our first, and he'll start from 4th position. So one of our front runners giving us a nice little view. And then, of course, we've got Josh Conker showing us once again, starting down in 12th, curiously. But again, qualifying not as important here in super speedway racing. So we'll see what the mid-pack looks like early in this race, potentially. And then the last one is going to be Charlie Sumner, who is going to be giving his view here from 32nd. So we got one up front, one in the middle, and one in the back here at the start. We'll see how that goes. And they already start to take off behind the pace car on our single pace lap here at Talladega. And then we are going racing for what is hopefully a full 90 laps here in round 2.
Indeed, Joe. And you know, one of the things we talked about early in this race was hoping that somebody would be able to put a little bit of a challenge to private label Team Hype. And would you look at that? Matthew Long and Taylor Stout, those are both Dirty South racing drivers. So a little bit of a gauntlet maybe being thrown down here for that team's championship.
Okay, then. Let's watch and see if they can keep that up in the race. Again, a fixed setup series, so this really will be down to who can manage the, well, I don't want to call it chaos necessarily, but all the unpredictability that comes with super speedway racing and the team tactics that you need around here, because nobody's really going to have an edge over one another in these fixed setup cars like we would sometimes see here in super speedway racing, trying to find those thousandths of a second, trimming out the car and getting a little bit more speed. And did we lose Aaron Self here? Let me double check to see if he is still, it looks like he is still in the sim, but for some reason has not gridded up.
I'm not sure. I did see that he disconnected a little bit ago, Joe, so it may have been a situation where he disconnected during the grid setup and was forced to start from pit lane. So we'll have to keep an eye on that for Aaron.
Okay, coming out of the final corner of the track, well, sort of, unless you count the tri-oval here, since they do have to work their way through there before they get to the start-finish line. But this is where the iRacing pace car is going to peel off and give control to Matthew Long. Now, he cannot jump the start. He must go on the green on the initial start here in the PRL Cup Series, but after that, he is able to determine the start on the restarts for this, and he will have control in those situations. So the 28 waits patiently, looking for the call from race control as they go through the tri-oval portion. It's round 2 and a new car here in the PRL Cup Series. And what is one of the most unique styles of NASCAR racing. The green flag is out. They start to pick up speed. Boy, third in the inside line is not going, and the high line immediately gets down to the bottom. They do not want to hang around up there. It looks like Stout, unfortunately, is not going to have the same luck. He gets hung out to dry.
Yeah, it looks like the next car bringing up that high line is going to be Eric Papineau, and hopefully that will be able to pick up some speed for Eric Stout as we exit out of turn 2 for the first time. You can see everybody just kind of edging their way here and there. No aggressive moves here early on. I like the patience everybody's distributing. Remember, this is a new car. Not everybody is exactly sure how this is going to handle, so a lot of figuring things out here as we go along.
Not everybody is really right on top of one another either. Oh, as we get our first caution early, Pete Bladon, I think, in the 50, it looks like, caused that one as he falls to the infield and smacks the wall. You got a little bit of a touch, I think, from the 26. That is Mike Witt.
Yeah, indeed, and looks like some pretty significant front-end damage to Bladon's car. We're going to go back and check out the replay here. That's him in that 50. Looks like he's already got a little bit of rear fender damage. Ooh, just a little bit of a nudge. Bladon pretty lucky there. He didn't collect anybody else on the track, but that car, even more insult to injury getting that back end whipped around. So not a good start to the day for the number 50.
At first, he did a good job of avoiding the outside wall, and then he unfortunately forgot about the inside one, and that did quite a bit of damage to the car. So he's going to have to come in and get that repaired. We're already hearing that some of the drivers are doing fuel saving here even this early on, so wonder if there's a few trying to play and get whatever edge they can on that side of the game.
Yeah, indeed, and I'm a little bit surprised that we're seeing it this early on. We're getting some reports that drivers are actually shutting off the engine and letting it coast a little bit here. That's pretty extreme as things go around, but I mean, it is Dega, so anything you want to get an advantage, drivers are going to take it.
Certainly. Already coming back around, so unfortunately did not get through the first lap with a full lap of green flag racing, but it was looking relatively good. Now, I don't think that incident was due to someone trying to give a bump draft there, but I will say that the drivers, DJ, were given quite a bit of words from the stewards before the race about being careful to square up when they push. It sounds like they were pretty concerned about these new cars and how easily or not easily they work in those tandems, trying to give each other bump drafts. It seemed like they were trying to give plenty of warning that they will hand out penalties if you give a bad bump.
Yeah, indeed, Joe. And with the front ends of these cars, you really have to be perfectly square. It's not really like we saw the last couple of years with the Chevys and the Fords out here running that you can get a little bit of leeway here and there. It's almost like the front ends of the Toyotas last year when they were running out around here, that if you just got it at just the wrong place, you could very, very easily send a driver around when you attempted to bump. So I think drivers are going to have to really, really watch out for that. It is not really easy enough to be able to keep it going when that happens.
Oh, looks like Bladon naturally has been in pit lane. So he's just finished up his repairs actually and is already heading out. So hopefully he can rejoin before this is done. Unfortunately, the rear of that car is in pretty bad shape, though, so I'm not sure he'll have much speed. Good news for him, he is still on the lead lap. And I think we're going to get lights out next time by on the pace car. So hopefully we'll go racing pretty quickly once again and get started on lap 5.
Indeed, and just a little bit more clarification on some of the updated models here. The Camaros are a little bit more pointy that we're hearing, that they those are the ones you really got to watch out for. Ford's relatively flat, and Toyota's now a little bit in the middle of the two, so we're going to have to watch out for that as it goes along. But one way or the other, all of these cars, you've got to be very, very careful on that bump draft.
Let's see where our team hype drivers are at this stage, because we're kind of wondering if they were going to be dominating. And looks like O'Brien's already got himself up into 4th, so he is definitely making some inroads there. Josh Conker up to 9th. Abner Acosta up to 5th. Yeah, they're starting to find their way up to the front. Looks like Richard Regan Jr. also into 11th. So that's 4 drivers on that team already in the top 11, nearly into the top 10. And we've only had 3/4 of a lap of racing. So that doesn't bode well for the competition. At least they do have Long and Daniels out there trying to keep them honest, make them work hard. Same thing with Trent Dinkle there on the bottom in the 2nd row. He'll see if he can try and use that good position to get him into P2, because it doesn't look like many want to be on that outside, at least on these starts for now, DJ.
No, and that may change a little bit once we get some more momentum built up in the cars and they continue going around a little bit more and speeds stay up. We may see that high line be a little bit more preferred, but I think on the restarts you want to be down low. That's what it looks like is the way to be here. We saw that sort of mass migration from the drivers who started out on the outside. We saw Taylor Stout get a little bit caught out by all of that. I think you want to get down low as quickly as possible, or just hope that you've got a whole mess of buddies behind you to be able to keep you up.
Some drivers definitely interested in trying to move forward, some not so. Looks like Taylor Burris definitely wants to try and pick his way through the field, because he started in 30th and he's already up to 24th in what little racing we did have. There you see the purple and black 40 finding his way forward. Also on the private label team. Unfortunately, was not able to take part in the massive win that he had, that his team had back in Atlanta, as he was involved in an incident with last season's champion Octavio Rondaletto as he was being lapped. But here comes the pace car down into pit lane, and it looks like Matthew Long will have control this time for real, being able to go when he decides he wants them to go. But he does not want to get a jump here in super speedway racing. It is the reverse of regular oval racing, where you want to make sure the field goes with you. And now he takes off. Green flag is out once again and getting low immediately. Josh Daniels wastes no time making sure he gets to the bottom.
No, he does not. It looks like there's a couple drivers trying to hold it up along the outside out there. I'm seeing O'Brien and Stout, the 2 lone riders, but that is Long and Daniels certainly trying to pull away here a little bit, and that could prove very, very effective. Now we're going to be able to take a look here a little bit at the side draft, see how that's going to go as a train starts to form a little bit on the high side.
That's being led by Dinkle on the bottom in the 501. In fact, he is gaining a ton of time on Daniels, and he's going to leave Abner Acosta behind. Looks like O'Brien wants in, but his teammate not able to offer any space as we ride on board with the Napa machine now finally reaching the back of the 77. Let's see if the next group can also do the same, and the answer is yes. Here comes the 5.
Indeed, a nice little push there for Abner Acosta, going to get his way forward. You see everybody trying to slide it down in there. That got a little bit hairy for James O'Brien. He is very, very lucky. And once again, the 66 just absolutely caught out napping Taylor Stout, looking for somebody to help him, but he can't find himself down into line.
Everybody's streaming by like a freight train, unfortunately. He's down to 16th, 17th place. There is no room at the end, as below him, that was some messy driving from Pat Harvey, getting a little squirrely into turn 3. Thankfully, no wreck has become of it, but almost everybody is getting to the bottom line now if they can.
Yeah, and you also saw a little bit of a hairy moment there for Scotty Johnson, who got his left side tires up and over onto the apron, almost sent him spinning around there in the 07, but Scotty luckily able to get it and keep it going. So everybody here just wanting to get down on that bottom line, nobody wanting to test up high.
And it looks like Stout finally found an opening, so he's down and in. As Matthew Long leads most of the group. We got a little train of 3 up at the back there that are trying the high side, trying to make out who that is that's currently running up at the top. and that looks like Sumner's involved in that, the 25 of Cervantes. And Clement, a time was up there, but now it looks like he wants to go back down, and yes, he does.
Yeah, I certainly thought about it, and it just doesn't look like that high line is really coming in for anybody. You can see there, that is, yeah, Cervantes getting pushed a little bit by Sumner, trying to see if that can go along at all, and the 43 of Chris Hudson, but they're not even running it exactly how I think they'd like to. They look a little bit spread out, a little bit of momentum gaining here. Okay, eating my words a little bit more. They may have a little bit of something here coming off of the corner.
Yeah, they're starting to pick him up and put him down. And there's a bump from Sumner on Cervantes. This is some of the waterback drivers that are teaming up. We're watching Charlie's perspective here as they now head into the turn.
Exactly, and I think really what these drivers want to see happen is that third lane open up and really get them pulled up and through there, but they're going to need a little bit of help. Whoa, here we go. That is going to be the 25, starting to make that move a little bit, as we are hearing some reports that the 62 is slowing down a little bit, and that's what's causing that high line to come into play.
Yeah, 3 wide briefly, and that's Mark Kalin, who's, I'm not sure if he's intentionally dropping back or if he has an issue of some sort, but whatever the case, it's causing him to now go to the almost tail end of the field. We have dropped a few cars behind this back of the group that we're looking at right now, and guys are getting a little bit more lively down the back stretch.
Starting to move around a little bit there on us there, Joe, and I think drivers are starting to feel out this car a little bit more, feel out how it's going to go, but it still just looks like nobody really wants to try to get that high line going, other than a couple of these brave waterback drivers being led by Charles Sumner and Chris Hudson right here.
Understanding that the 62 had to make a bit of a checkup, and he lost the draft because of that, so that's why we saw him fall backwards. As we come back to the front, it is still Long, Daniels, Dinkel, Acosta, and Papineau, your top drivers, but I think we're getting some blinking from Abner Acosta, which is nothing new, but when it's on a super speedway, it gets all the more perilous.
And all the more terrifying for the drivers around him. They're going to be very scared about that number 5 could just magically appear in the car in front of them. And also, it can be a little bit disastrous for Eric Papineau behind, because when that car blinks, the way the iRacing physics work is that the car disappears completely, and that includes the draft in front of him. So if Abner blinks out, he'll lose a little bit of speed for that, and he'll have to try to catch himself back up to Trent Dinkel until Abner will appear once more.
It's not good news, but Eric's hanging tough, and that top line is gaining friends. It is no longer a 3-car train. It looks like they've got about half a dozen in there, all the way back to the 25 of Cervantes, who's gone from the front of that one. Oh, and they've got another joining up in front of them as well. I think there's a few that are liking how this looks, and it includes Josh Conker.
Yeah, I think Conker took the opportunistic move there, saw the speed coming up from Charles Sumner and Chris Hudson, and don't forget about Taylor Stout there. He's in that line as well, and he's going to start to pull along. They're going to pull alongside the leaders, and there goes Dinkel, and there goes Abner Acosta up to that high side. That's some good racing. Here we go.
Oh, but Daniels doesn't have any friends now, and he falls backwards. So being a bit of a chameleon, Matthew Long trying to jump in front of whichever line looks the quickest, and it's worked so far, but eventually that may bite him in the end. Some of them who are in that high line now get down to the bottom, and that drops that high line back slightly, but Charlie Sumner going to come back to the rescue and see if he can pull them up once again.
He is, but he's going to lose out a little bit. I think he timed that slightly wrong. He wanted to be a little bit closer to Chris Hudson there to get that move perfectly working. They're going to have to now reset up, almost bump drafting there through the corner. You got to be careful on that, boys. That doesn't end well.
But it looks like the bravery is raising for these drivers as this goes on. More experience being garnered, and they're seeing what works and what doesn't in this new car. But Charles is now falling back farther and farther down the order. It looks like he's going to slip outside the top 10, unfortunately. Matthew Long still leads. Dinkel is now up into second, with Acosta getting himself into third. Conker really rode that wave well, and that garnered him 4th place. Daniels, the big loser, down to 5th.
Indeed, he is really trying to get it going up there. Another little bit of blink from Abner Acosta. And remember, Charles Sumner, always one of the drivers that seems to do incredibly well on the restrictor plate super speedway style races, so I would not take my mind off him. And indeed, look at that. They've got some speed. They're challenging for the lead here, Joe.
He might actually lead this lap, and that is a bonus point. Let's see across the line. And it looks like Charles Sumner will indeed get a leading the lap bonus point for that one. So job done there for him, but he's now hanging tough, seeing if he can truly take the lead away. He's got help from Chris Hudson behind, and then third in line is Taylor Stout, who earlier on we thought was losing many positions due to his lack of a slipstream partner, but he's really made it back up, and we're only on lap 14, so it looks like things can change very quickly in this style of racing in the next gens.
Speaking of changing very quickly, I think Chris Hudson may need to do that. You saw that big swerve there out of him, almost losing control of the car coming through four. He may need a quick change after that kind of maneuver. We ride on board with the driver of the 43 right now. That's Sumner directly ahead of him. You can see Dinkle and Long out of the left side there. This is really the battle for the lead. Abner Acosta starting to poke his nose in there. That low line is going to pay dividends through the corners, but it's on the straights where that more momentum on the high line is really going to pick up, and that's going to help these guys.
We've seen the onboard with Sumner. I wonder if we could check in on Dinkle to see what it looks like for him. He's actually giving a little bit of help to the 28 now. He's got a good view of everybody trailing behind as we hop on board with him, and just look at how calm he is, just stroking his chin a little bit at one point, even in the midst of the corner. So he doesn't seem too fazed about all that's happening. He's riding fine in second position.
My goodness gracious, talk about cool under pressure, Joe. I know if that was me, I would be white-knuckling that wheel like there was no tomorrow, but Trent Dinkle just absolutely calm, cool, and collected. Jumping back here to Josh Conker, the fourth car in line. That high line is losing a little bit of speed. It looks like Sumner has dropped back to around 8th or 9th place with Burris and Hudson hovering right around there.
Yeah, and this is two private label cars as we get another caution, and it looks like Guerra and Besaw are involved as more drivers are having to take avoiding action, and Guerra looks like he started to take off maybe a little bit prematurely. That was something that our drivers were warned about before the race, as the stewards were unhappy with how many drivers failed to hold their brakes after a wreck. So I wonder if Joao will get a little bit of a talking to after this one.
Very well might. That unsafe rejoin, as it were, one of the things that is very easy to spot and easy to correct in iRacing, and the stewards, as you said, do not want to see it. But let's go check out this replay. Let's see exactly what happened here. We follow on, watching on that 519. That is Guerra. A little bit of a bump draft gone awry coming off the corner, able to get it straightened out. Besaw alongside him, and I think Guerra just didn't realize he was there.
Yeah, looked like he was trying to get in line, and there wasn't space. They were 3 wide at the time. Bit difficult to tell from that angle. Let's see it from here. Yeah, he wanted in, and he shouldn't have been given the clear if he was. And unfortunately, that cost both of them many positions.
Yeah, it certainly did. So we are going to have that yellow come out again. There you can see the 05 just sort of spinning in sympathy. That's Tom Amasi there. I don't think any damage to that 05 machine.
Both Guerra and Besaw had to come in as they got meatball flags for too much damage, so they were not able to continue. They might still get back out, but they're going to be multiple laps down as we do indeed get our first pit stops. This is earlier than I expected, but I guess enough drivers feel like this is a good a time as any to try and top up on fuel. We'll see if they elect to take tires as well. Might be a bit early for that, especially if you want to save them for the end just in case. And down into pit lane, I'm not seeing anybody overshooting their stalls quite yet, as that is something typically easy to do. And out, it looks like Trent Dinkle is going to be the first. So Trent Dinkle is now your new leader after those stops.
Yeah, and that looks like a pretty bad stop for Taylor Stout on the whole there. So that's 66 losing out, certainly, but it's going to be Dinkle, Stout, I think Acosta, and Conquer, your top 4.
Very few drivers doing a full 4-tire stop. Looks like Daniels and Kalen among them. I see Charles Sumner, Adam Zemke, and Jose Medina. Otherwise, either it's a 2-tire stop or drivers just taking some fuel and getting back out there to see how this race plays out on that strategy. And that's going to be on lap 18 that our first pit stops are finished now. Well, 17 technically, as they come into lap 18 here and down the backstretch once again. 2 cautions here so far today in our 90-lap race, DJ, but this is looking at least a little bit cleaner than what we saw at Atlanta.
Yes, indeed it is. It's, I think, just seems a little bit longer because the cautions are longer, courtesy of the 2.66 miles that these drivers have to circulate around behind that pace car. But, you know, these restarts really will allow, I think, for everybody to kind of cycle back out and feel some things out. Opting not to take tires here, we'll have to see any of the drivers that did take them, if that's maybe going to give them a little extra grip on that high side, maybe carry a little bit more speed there. Maybe we'll see, you know, I think Matthew Long being a little bit upset. Maybe he wants to try to push his way forward a little bit more in that 28 machine. So we'll have to see.
But what I find curious is we didn't see anyone take an alternate strategy in there. Everybody came in to try and take a pit stop, where this is, I would say, is one where the tires don't meet as much. So you could take a gamble to try and stay out. I guess the hard part about that is the potential for it to go green, and then you're on an alternate fuel strategy that could capture you a lap down. But if you're looking to try and get out of all the chaos in the back, trying to get yourself some track position, this would be the place to do it, but nobody took it.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised at that as well, Joe. A couple of drivers looks like they're coming in there. I think those are lap down cars, potentially. But, yeah, just maybe a little bit of a top off here for a few of them. But I'm not sure why you wouldn't try to go a little bit longer. I mean, it's Talladega. If I was a betting man, I'd be putting money down that we're going to see another yellow flag here before we would get to the end of the fuel window. So, yeah.
Yeah, they've got 2 cautions, so I got to think that your range probably be 30 to 35 laps there in that first stint. You could potentially get yourself to the finish on a 2-stopper, depending on how green it goes. But then, of course, that can be a tall ask sometimes, and everything's a giant question mark, so maybe everybody's just kind of playing it safe here, trying to play the easy strategy and pit whenever we have a decent run, try and get some fuel in and see where it takes us. But regardless, it's still early to tell. When it gets later on, maybe some drivers will take a gamble and roll the dice, but we're already 2 wide. We're getting ready to go green once again on lap 20 of 90.
Exactly. And going back 2 wide here again, this is going to be the first time that we've had to see Matthew Long up on that high side. And don't look now, but we've got a row 2 made up exclusively of private label team hype drivers. That's Abner Acosta and Josh Conquer. That is going to be very, very dangerous. And don't count out Taylor Stout there behind in the 66. That is Matthew Long's teammate. He has been doing a good job to work his way back forward. Josh Conquer there, though, going to be doing some good things. And Taylor Burris, another private label team hype driver. Those 3 cars can all hook up. That's going to be a very, very dangerous combination to get around. Teammates are going to be huge around here.
Make it 4. James O'Brien is right next to Taylor Burris as well. So they're all pretty clumped together up towards the front. We'll see if they can find one another in the craziness of Talladega's slipstream races. We're coming to the line, waiting for the green flag. Trent Dinkle has control after winning the race off of pit road. And there he goes. Just behind him, Matthew Long is going to do the same as we saw before, with second place immediately getting down into line. And in fact, behind him, it is all single file until you essentially get back to Papineau in 6th place, O'Brien rather in 7th. Now they're continuing to slip in line as Taylor Burris decides he's got an opening big enough to try and get the car in there. So yeah, nobody willing to try and stay high here early on the restart. Everybody's ducking low.
Yeah, and indeed, and you saw, I think, just how much Matthew Long had some momentum behind Dinkle, but didn't want to pull that car up, just choosing to stay in line here. And this may be another part of the strategy, Joe, is that we could see some good fuel saving from these guys who are just content to hold in line behind, and whether or not that actually saves them time on pit lane, or if it's just able to cool it off a little bit and not run the car as hard, this will be good for them as you see them thundering down into turn 1.
Still nobody making any moves yet. Waiting for that second line to start to form up. Where did Charles Sumner go after that one? Looks like he is down in 12th position. He was kind of the ringleader for much of that top line, and you were talking about it, how savvy he tends to be here on these super speedways. But so far, he's electing not to go. I almost feel like if I was near him, I'd kind of be looking out and do whatever he does.
Yeah, exactly. It's not the craziest thing to do in the world. A little bit of monkey see, monkey do may play out well, but as of right now, it looks like all of the monkeys just wanting to stay down in line here. Nobody wanting to move their way forward. That is Sumner's old drafting buddy, Chris Hudson, there right ahead of him. They were the ones really running that high line early on. I gotta think that they just want to find the right time to get it to go there. You see a couple of fastest laps getting set down.
Glad to see Taylor Burris getting up and in the fray. He didn't have the greatest of races in Atlanta, not just because of the secondary contact with the race leader at the time, but he also had a little coming together with him before that sent him in the wall, got him a little bit of damage, and that unfortunately is what kind of put him behind the 8 ball in terms of strategy. Right now, Taylor running in the 9th position. So we see some of our team hype drivers continue to try to work their way forward as they run towards the back. That is actually, that's the car of Richard Regan Jr. that is working with that little top line starting to form. The 8 of Byron McDonald is just in front of him, followed by, it looks like, Baron Hilton in that group as well.
Yeah, indeed, Joe. And remember, we saw this kind of thing develop last time. And what is going to help them here is drivers that get opportunistic and pull right up ahead of them. Good bump draft there from Regan Jr. That is exactly how you do it. Getting right up behind Byron McDonald and giving him a nice little shove into the corner, a little bit of overspeed. That'll help them out as they get going around. But what they need is they need a couple of drivers from this low line to work their way up in front of them, decide to take a little bit of a chance here and go for that maneuver to jump up to the high line.
Love these roof cams and the views that they give, because you can see just how many cars are up ahead. And these are all cars that are running about 190 miles an hour around you. This is one heck of a train that you're witnessing from on board Richard Regan Jr. And he is making a little bit of inroads, a spot maybe about once a lap, it looks like, here and there, just kind of picking them up, but not as quickly as what we saw with Sumner and his group before.
Well, unless my eyes deceive me, that is Charles Sumner that has decided to take my advice, and he has poked his nose up onto the high line. Indeed, that is Charles Sumner. So there you can see, and you can see that pull that McDonald is able to get right up to the back of Sumner. And so now McDonald will hopefully give Sumner a little bit of a push here, and that will help everybody starting to get their ways go forward.
Here we go. Yeah, this is what they were looking for. Now they are really chugging along as they pick off more and more drivers. They're already up into the 12th position here. Sumner leading that train in the 43, sees it coming. Looks like Chris Hudson is going to join the fun, so he hits the top side. We have another one. Yeah, that's Mark Kalin in the 62 as well.
Exactly, Joe. Just like I said, monkey see, monkey do. And now the monkeys coming up to the high line here, and they are going to try to make it work. There you see Kalin, Hudson, Sumner, McDonald really leading this group along. Now, the other thing they can do to help themselves, this may sound a little counterintuitive to guys who don't watch a lot of super speedway racing, is actually almost getting a little bit closer to that other line through the corners, picking up a little bit of that side draft as they go along. That'll help them get more speed.
I haven't talked a whole lot about the side draft, but we haven't seen much of it that seemed intentional to me, at least, trying to get right next to that car next to you. We'll explain that a little bit more later, but it is helpful in picking up speed. The 62 up to 7th place. There he goes. Now he's chugging along. They got the 50 way up high. That's a lapped car. That is, he's going to stay out of the way, thankfully. That's Pete Bladon. He's just going to let them all through. Well done to him. And yeah, my goodness, the top line has really got it moving, because now it appears that Mark Kalin has got himself up into 6th position, make that 5th as he just creeps by Taylor Stout.
And there you saw the 54 of Josh Conker. I think he thought about maybe moving up to that high line, thinking about it again. Let's see if any of these leaders decide to do it. Oh, Taylor wanted to go up to that high line there, but wasn't able to get it clear in time. And so he is going to be left down there again. Yeah, you're right, Joe. They're picking off about a car a lap here at this pace.
Up on that high side, down off of turn 4 towards the tri-oval. Trent Dinkle is still your leader, ahead of Matthew Long and Abner Acosta, who have been those top 3 since the restart, have not changed positions. If we see the 62 manage to get up to the side of them, that'll be the first time that's changed since about lap 20. They come through 1 and 2 now and onto the back stretch. Josh Conker in that 54, not giving way as easily as what we saw from those behind.
No, certainly is not, although there's starting to be a little bit of a gap developing now with Dinkle and Long pulling out a little bit more. Acosta and Kalin and Hudson there just kind of in their own little triangle. There they catch back up again. All right, Highline, this is where you need to play nice with the people around you. Tuck up behind in that draft. Get a little bit of a bump here once you come out of the tri-oval. Push some more speed into the corners. You've got to be playing selfless racing here. That is the way you get forward at a big super speedway like this in these cars.
Well, and we're barely reaching the 1/3 mark in this race too, so there's still plenty to go here in this event, including multiple pit stops that they'll have to make to get to the finish. And 62, who gained quite a bit of time on Conker, temporarily falls back once again. I wonder, will we see Charles Sumner maybe try and leave these two behind? Will he try and make a 3rd line and see if he can get something going? Because he certainly was moving quick when it was him up at the front, and then these two joined in and it started to slow up just a bit.
Well, he might, Joe, but the only problem is if he decides to go up and make that 3rd lane work, what that's going to really benefit is the middle lane, because they'll get side draft a little bit on 2 sides. It's almost like you're running through a tunnel that they will just be able to pick up some more and more speed if Sumner decides to do that. But it seems like a move a little bit later in the race. I think right now, if I'm in Sumner or anybody's in this position, I'm okay just kind of sitting back here in about the 5th or so position and letting the race come to me.
This group that we see goes all the way back to 25th, Matthew Aubrey. Then from there, you've got a breakup with a second group that we haven't touched on, but they're all pretty much single file, being led by Luke Christian in 26th spot. That includes all the way down to 33rd. After that, you get drivers who are laps down. Pete Bladon and, well, just Pete Bladon. It looks like Guerra is gone. Aaron Self has not started this race as he's had some internet issues, and Robert Besaw Jr. is still taking extensive repairs in pit lane. So we've got 2 main groups here on lap 31 of this race. And there is that second group that we saw on screen briefly. There's a small breakaway down the backstretch by Trent Dinkle there, DJ, and Matthew Long, able to get those 2 cars away from Abner Acosta, but then it's gone away already. It does seem like we've seen that multiple times. The 501, the 28 seem to be able to start to pull a little bit of something that they just can't keep away.
Yeah, exactly. I was actually thinking the exact same thing, and it just not looking like they're able to pull away, and it's always on that backstretch. And there we see a little bit more blinking out of Abner Acosta. Oh, that has got to scare Josh Conker a little bit if he's riding behind him like that. I know I would not be pleased about it at all. But, yeah, they just have a good run, it seems like, on the backstretch. And then Acosta and Conker are able to very easily close up through 3 and 4.
Highline still not able to do much down there. We've seen them get all the way up to about 5th place and then stall out without much to say from there. Don't need to at this point. We keep harping on it, but there's just so much racing left. They are probably in a pretty good spot from here. You can see cars occasionally hopping out of line, maybe trying to get themselves a little bit of air on the nose so that they don't overheat. So is this where we start to settle in to this race? Is this where drivers just find their spot agreeable enough, knock off some laps, and see where the race takes them from here?
Well, Joe, that would be my position to be in. At this stage of the race, we're just away at 1/3 of the ways down here. As we've said, we anticipate them being able to go probably around 30 to 33-ish laps on fuel. Let the race come to you. You don't want to push too hard, especially if you're one of these high-line chargers here. You know you can get a good run, but you don't need to push it too hard. You don't need to go crazy on the bump drafting here. You don't really need to be doing anything superhero at this moment. Just let the race come to you. Drive it a little bit like Rick Mears used to do in the Indy 500. I know I'm crossing oil and water there, but just go with me. That, you know, Rick Mears was a guy that he just tweak and tune the car as it went along and let the race come into him. And I think a lot of guys, looking specifically at one of the drivers we're running on board with, Charles Sumner, could be doing just that, letting this track speak to him and figuring out as it goes along.
We're finally seeing a little bit of a higher run from the 62 as Kalen was pulled up past the car of Josh Conquer briefly, and now he starts to fall back once again. Almost looked like they're getting a little more aggressive with the bump drafting. And ooh, they're losing one, though. There is the 43 of Chris Hudson in the blue car that jumps to the bottom. That's one less to help, and that's a little bit less speed.
It is, but I will say the flip of that is that we have seen Charles Sumner have a lot of experience being able to push on there. So while there may be a little less speed, there's still good experience up on that high line. So it's him up there just trying to get behind Mark Kalen and seeing what he can do, as well as Barron Hilton there behind them. That's that 3 leading trio on the high side.
Big checkup on the bottom, which helps out the high side because they fell all the way back to 10th. There for a moment, now being led by Kalen and Sumner behind him trying to push. And that actually spread out the bottom. I'm surprised some of them have not tried to pop into that bottom line now that they've got some openings because of drivers having to make big lifts there. They are committed to this top side here in this group. Something to be said, though, I guess, for a little bit of loyalty around here. Drivers, I always remember, I think it was Martin Brundle that likes to say drivers have memories like elephants. They just don't forget things. And someone does you a solid, I'm pretty sure it'll help you come the end of the race.
Well, I know, Joe, that I've called several races here from Talladega and Daytona, both of which race relatively similarly, obviously differences between the two, but you've heard drivers say, yeah, I didn't really want to pull out and pass him because he was giving me a good bump the entire time and I wanted to be nice to him. And so that's sort of something that does play in. There's a little bit of give and take that actually develops around here. And it's not exactly what you would standard think with race car drivers, that it's, you know, winner take all, but for whatever reason, when you get into these restrictor plate races, you get that little bit of, no, you go ahead kind of mentality.
And now it is the 77 of Josh Daniels who leads that pack. So no change in the top 4, even the top 5. Whoa, what's that in the background? Someone has spun off. Trying to make out who that is in that dark car there. That is the 23 of Drew DeWeese. No caution. He's off the racing line. Bad news for him. Good news for everybody else. That was contact with Bob Clement, unfortunately.
Yeah, and heavy damage to Drew DeWeese's machine there. I would not be surprised if he's got to take a tow. I'm guessing that is some sort of bump draft gone awry, potentially. But we'll have to check out a replay to get a better idea of exactly what went down.
Yeah, I've gone back and looked on my end, and it was very strange. It was like Bob lifted a little bit. Here we're going to see it. And he thought maybe he could come down to the bottom, but at the same time, DeWeese was coming up to the top, and they met in the middle, and DeWeese got the worst of it down at the bottom.
Yeah, he certainly did. Bob looks able to get away with that relatively unscathed, although some of the damage, I think, to that left side panel probably end up hurting him a little bit in terms of straight line speed. But yeah, Drew DeWeese there, that is a day-ending wreck for the 23.
All right, we're on lap 22 now. We've been green since the last stop, so will we see drivers duck in the next few laps? Who's going to be the first to blink? Or will we get a caution? And it won't be a question for anybody, because at this point, you got to imagine everybody will come in. Someone jumps up at the high side. That is Kalen once again.
Kalen looking for friends there, seeing if anybody's going to be gutsy enough to come up there with him. He doesn't have anybody right now. He just cleared by Daniels. And that's the 45 there of Papineau looking around. Tim, I see O'Brien working his way by him. I don't think this is a good move for Kalen. And yeah, he looks like he's trying to get back down there already.
There were regrets, unfortunately. And, oh, well, someone's coming up and joining him with a 44. That's CM Pennington. So he's got one friend, but it's too little too late. And in fact, it's time the 62 is going to try and get back to the bottom anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, no! Pennington gets tipped around. Car is hitting into the wall. Looks like the 31 got a piece of it. I think that was also Adam Zemke in there who got involved. Patrick Cowgill, Taylor Burris with another problem for the second week in a row.
And that, Joe, as you could tell by our squeaks and noises, was an accident that was just waiting to happen with everybody coming together like that. I was about to say that that backpack looked very, very squirrely.
Yeah, Pennington moved up to the high side to try and help, and then the 62 dropped him just as that happened. That lost him speed, and you can see the results here. It seems, well, the 84 of Walden made a beautiful decision in that, because he ducked down low, and then poor Charlie Sumner, he kind of had no place to go, it looks like, because he got into the back of the 44 as it started to go 3 wide just there.
Yeah, just wrong place, wrong time for Charles Sumner, although I think he will be able to escape that without a whole lot of damage to the front end of the car. Certainly nothing that they can't just beat out of the front. It looks pretty intact there, just taking a quick look at it.
Yeah, Sumner squeaked through. There was a little touch on Baron Hilton behind him, so I'm not sure if he wound up getting involved in that. Looks like Skip Gandy managed to avoid it. Mike Witt. I think Byron McDonald's 5th place finisher from last week. Yeah, he dove way down to the inside wall to try and avoid it. And actually, he had a number of bumps as I'm looking on my replay. Almost looked like the car almost got a little airborne down there. But we're going to watch pit stops before we take a look at that, because the driver's immediately coming down the lane.
Yeah, indeed they are. This is around the end of that fuel window for drivers, so I'm not surprised to see everybody coming down. I would anticipate tires being taken here, but I have been made a liar out of this series before.
Yeah, I think now's the time to go for that. Might as well put some fresh ones on. Let's see if everybody hits their mark. Looks like the front 4 did. Not seeing anybody behind going a little too far. Who's going to be the first out, though? It looks like, oh, it's going to be very close, and Matthew Long was just barely able to beat Dinkle out, I think. He should be able to take that one out, and yes, as they start to sort each other out, it looks like the 28 will be your leader after our second stops of the day. Dinkle second, and Abner Acosta returns in third with Stout behind him. That's going to take us to a quick break. We'll come back with more here in the PRL NASCAR Cup Series.
Hey there, I'm Nicholas Dubois, co-founder of Advanced SimRacing. We are a Canadian company. So what we did here today is for a real petrol head. He's really passionate about cars, as you can see behind me. We did a turnkey solution for him based on his needs. We try to gather as much information as we can on our client. And like we did today, we install a D-box system. We install ultra-wide cube control steering wheel. We try to provide the best quality for your budget. So let's say if you want a budget of 10 grand, we're gonna give you something that's the best for 10 grand. If you want 20 grand, then we always try to stay within your boundaries. We do try to make it as easy as possible. So the client, once we install everything, it's pretty much gonna be a turnkey. So he's gonna press start on his computer, and right after, we'll try to explain everything, how it goes, how it works, and then he's ready to go. Our aluminum is from USA, treated in Canada, cut in Canada. So we do sand all our aluminum piece just to make sure the powder coat sticks to it. And that's one of the reasons why we use powder coat, is to make sure you have the best aluminum finish in the industry. And our quality is beyond what you can get with any other competitors right now. We are really, really passionate about all the gear, all the cockpits, all the sim hardware. And that's why we want to create something that's really gonna reflect our passion into our product. Come visit us at advancedsimracing.com. You can always reach us if you have any questions. You can call us, you can text us, you can go on Facebook, like our page, ask us questions over there, and we'll make sure to answer every questions there is. We are very passionate about what we do, and we try to make it as easier for you to go into the sim racing world, because there's a lot of gear, there's a lot of options, but let us guide you through your process, and let's hope you'll be an Advanced Sim Racing customer.
Welcome back to Talladega Superspeedway. We're watching round 2 in the Precision Racing League NASCAR Cup Series. Matthew Long is going to give us the restart here on lap 44, just about exactly halfway into this race. But we have seen 3 cautions so far. One at the very beginning, one that happened about 16 or 17 laps in, and now we've got the latest here, just shy of the halfway mark. Though we've had the top line start to come in a little bit here and there, they have not been able to dispose of the leaders, and most drivers tend to try and get down to the bottom on these restarts. We'll see if that is the case here on lap 44. Pace car is in. Matthew Long has control of the fields. Dinkle to his outside, Acosta behind him. Taylor Stout in the 66 on the outside of row 2. Waiting patiently for that green. Giving it a long time, and now we are rolling. And the inside line does not seem to go. In fact, this might not be good for Dinkle on the outside there, as usually that second place car wants to try and get down to the bottom from what we've seen so far. And yeah, top line is not moving.
No, it is not. There may be a little help there behind. That is Hudson and the 66 of Taylor Stout. If they can get that moving in, we could see a little bit of it, but Dinkle did lose out there all the way back down to 5th. Now, if that bump draft can come into play here down the back straightaway and maybe get a little bit of a push going into the corner, that can help out Trent Dinkle.
Now, like rats off of a sinking ship, many of them were bailing and jumping to the bottom line, but Daniels does the reverse. He gets up high. He sees them start to move, and he is going to join in with Dinkle. That could get him up to the front here. Let's see. It is starting to be a very good push. He's already alongside Conquer, and Acosta, with his continuing internet issues, who is currently 2nd, might be 3rd in a moment. Long tried to make it up to the top line and cover them off, and that did not work. The 77 didn't want anything of that, and this is going to leave the 28 to fall down the middle lane that has suddenly formed. Now Acosta is the leader up at the front.
Well, we wanted 3 lines of racing, Joe, and we just got him. Dinkle, however, abandons it, leaving that 28. They're out in no man's land. Matthew Long just getting swallowed up. Oh, my goodness gracious. That is not what he wanted to see have happen.
Certainly not. I kind of understand what he was trying to do, but that backfired spectacularly. So now Acosta leads Conker, leads O'Brien, leads Ali. It is finally switched around in a big way in the front of the field. Still got that top line working, but Daniels is down in 9th place currently. He's got the 66 of Stout behind him, trying to pick it back up. And the 28 of Matthew Long fell all the way to 13th.
Yeah, and you can see just what happens there if you don't get that out.
Oh, was that a bad bump there? Sending our leader to the bottom. He's into the grass. He's going to try and keep it from coming back on, but some cars have to scatter. And we got another caution as into the track goes Mike Witt. He's going to hit the 07. Oof.
Oof. Ooh, indeed. That's Charles Sumner involved in it. As you said, the 07 down there. Oh, this is not looking good.
That was not a square touch. And interestingly, I don't put that one on the internet connection of Abner Acosta. That was just not a square push from Josh Conker, who was the one that connected with him, which interestingly is his teammate.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of a miscommunication there. Let's watch this. It goes in there. It looked like Abner was a little bit fleety there, and tries to get it. You can see that car hopping across. Abner just trying to get that thing woed back up, and then just a little bit too late.
Yeah, the slightest of contact, though. Does he avoid the second one? Wow, and the 55 too, sliding in. Oh, wow, there were some crazy escapes on this one. Now, I did notice this live as it was happening. Charlie Sumner showing these guys what the brakes do on these cars.
Yeah, watch this. This is an incredible checkup. He sees it happening in front of him. Holds it, and just gonna come to a stop. He's fine with that.
Beautiful stuff. Kept him out of trouble. He has a clean car. Unfortunately, I think it lost him some spots. Yeah, he's down in 23rd now. But he's still racing. He can get those back. He's shown he knows how to get his way back to the front. Okay, then. Well, as soon as we got a change up at the front, it immediately resulted in drivers having trouble pushing without getting into one another in the wrong way. So it is now Conker leading O'Brien, leading Ali with Romero. Now, have we even talked about the 4 car? I don't think we've mentioned him once this race, and he's now in the top 5.
No, we truly have not. And
Ooh, he's not clean, though.
No, he is not. A lot of damage to that left rear.
Not sure where that came from. I'll have to look and see if we can figure out what caused that. It's pretty significant damage, too, on that left rear, so don't think he's going to be getting away clean without any sort of speed hindrance on that car. They're regrouping, not expecting to see any pit stops this time around, just since they just had those. And we got to start worrying about if this is going to be a timed race now with our 4th caution of the day.
Yeah, indeed, and I think it probably will be veering towards that timed race, Joe. Normally, 3 cautions or so are built into that time frame that we expect for the timing, and now that we are on our 4th one, I think we've got to start looking a little bit at the clock.
We're hearing that the re-entry, and I assume that's from Acosta, is going to be looked at, which I hope they aren't going to penalize him for that, because that there's no way that he could have really slowed up that car. It was going through the grass at about 160 miles an hour.
Yeah, exactly, Joe. He was a hapless passenger at that point. I think the only thing he could have done to actually hold onto it and stop it would have been to get out and put it in reverse.
So we'll see. We'll see if we can get clarification. Maybe that was for somebody else. And we are hearing that we are good on time for now for these 4 cautions that we've had. So that's good news, that we'll see a full distance race here potentially. But we're running out of cars on the lead lap. We are now down to 24 of them, with Tom Massey being the last of them. That's out of 37 starters, and a good chunk of them now are in pit lane taking long repairs, so we're not even sure I have to check to see how many drivers are even still running right now.
Yeah, we've certainly got quite a few who have been hit out here, and not entirely surprising, it is Talladega, and the big one coming to bite a lot of drivers as we start to reform double wide, getting ready to go green once this goes back around one more time.
Apologies. I misread information that I was given. It is 100% going to be a timed race now, is what we are being told. So the 4 cautions have been a little bit too much here, and we are going to see this based on time. So we'll check on that in a second, get you the official clock in a moment. We're already double file, so we're getting ready to run once again on lap 50 now.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see here what O'Brien does in trying to dive down to that low line. We saw Dinkel really get caught out last time. I think that is going to be standing in the forefront of the number 9's brain, and that wanting to get down there as quickly as possible is going to influence a lot of decisions. And also, again, that 666 for Ali and that damage on the car, what is that going to do with a lot of these fast runners up front with clean cars?
So we have 33 minutes, well, 34 minutes really, left on the clock right now. So with 42 to go, yeah, you can see there it's going to be too tough for them to try and get all of those laps in before the clock expires around here, with the best laps at this place in the 48s and 49s. And they're even getting some talk from race control, I guess, trying to calm them down. Try to get them as much to the finish as they can. And we'll see if we get any more yellows after this. That's going to be a lot of laps without seeing any more cautions being thrown. So here we go again. The pace car below the dashed yellow line and pulls into pit lane. This time, it's going to be Josh Conquer who is up at the front. The winner from round 1. To his outside, James O'Brien, his teammates. Ooh, a little bit of a shove from behind from the 666 of Ali, and the green flag is out. They are rolling, and wow, the teammates on the front row clearly in communication. They both took off almost in perfect sync.
Yeah, that was almost a synchronized swimming routine there, but the question is, there's the move down. Okay, that answers my question. It looks like the 4 of Romero getting a little bit caught out there behind Gandy, trying to make it work on that high line, as is Taylor Stout. Here comes the bump draft. A little bit of a move there from Stout. Ooh, weaving this way and back. Stayed a little bit more straight, boys. That's the only way you can get that high line bump draft to work.
And the 4, gets a shove just as he goes into the corner. That drifts him up high, so not a whole lot of speed in that maneuver for Romero. And then, oh man, they're dropping like a rock. Walden announcing that he's pitting in. Not sure if that's for some damage repair or if he's dealing with a penalty. We'll try and check up on that. Speaking of which, they are not investigating Acosta for the re-entry, so wanted to make a correction on what was going on there. Bottom line, once again, the place to be. It is Conquer, O'Brien, Ali, Dinkel, McDonald, your top 5.
Yeah, and Matthew Long sitting there behind them, and along with Taylor Stout, who's just been sort of ping-ponging around those top 10 positions after having that very good qualifying time. Conquer leading this race as of now. We see some more drivers bailing on that high line. Nobody wanting to really try to make that work.
All right. As they settle in once again, looks like they were taking the stewards to heart. Race control giving them the calm down, and they respected it. But how long will it last? It certainly looks like the 9 and the 54 are doing all they can to get as much speed as possible here and try and stretch away from the hungry pack. And down at the bottom, is that Walden? That was the 84. And let's see, yeah, that is Walden, who was coming off of pit road. So after whatever took him down through pit lane, he did take a stop in his pit stall, about 16.5 seconds. So he probably took some service. That maybe was a pit stop. Wonder if that's trying to get himself to the end, actually.
Well, with it being a timed race, he just may be able to do it if he's got a little bit of help from a yellow or two potentially. So that could be a long game there for Waldo. Have to see if that pays out. He is running solo up on that high lane, though, so he is going to run out of speed very quickly.
It's a big risk. Walden is now a lap down, and I think, is that now 2 laps down now that he's been passed? I think it is. So Walden finds himself able to get to the finish, I would assume, from here. But was it that tight for everybody else? And like you said, if we get cautions, that's going to trap him a lap down. So at this point, I think he wants it to go green to the finish. And we got somebody slow on the infield.
That's Patrick Cowgill down on the infield. Not sure what happened to him. It looks like there's a little bit of damage to that left rear quarter panel, but just... Oh, he's got a blown engine.
And yeah, he's already got damage on the front, so I suspect something happened earlier in the race, and the car finally decided it had had enough and could not make it to the finish. This is one of those tracks that can often see plenty of cars find themselves pushed to their limit. But up at the front, the limit is Josh Conker. If you want the win, you're going to have to pass him.
Indeed you are, and I'm going to be interested to see if anybody decides to try to go to the high line here. I mean, you're going to need probably 3-4 cars to make it work, working in synchronicity together. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe some of the Dirty South guys think about it. I would say Private Label Team Hype would be in a prime position to go to try for it, but they're leading right now, so what's the point?
Well, they do have one friend back there, Richard Regan in the 46. I'm sure he would like to try and get a little bit farther up to join them. But as they continue to tick off laps, we're on 55 out of a timed race. We're down to 28 minutes left on the clock at this stage. Oh, and somebody got turned in the background. Clement, and nobody's coming, so no caution. Oh, there it is. Oh, this is horrible news for Walden if he was trying to pull a savvy strategy move. That was another bad bump, it looks like. Clement getting pushed by Hilton, just turned the car, and unfortunately it was a big hit, so I think Bob is going to have to take a tow or at least take extensive repairs. There you see what happened to the 927.
Yeah, that just looked like a bad hookup on a bump draft there, and the 927 coming off the worst for wear. That car is not going to be moving anytime soon, unfortunately. Well, okay, there it is, proving me wrong. It is moving.
Yeah, but that was such a hard hit. He's got to come in the pit lane, I got to think. He doesn't have a meatball flag, but it's probably not going to be handling well, and at this stage, it really doesn't do much good to try and stay out, I don't think. He is going to go past. The pits might not be open yet for him because the rest of the field is still coming around to try and catch up to the pace car. Well, this is going to shorten the race even more now with our 5th caution of the day. And we're starting to see a cautions breed cautions, it feels like. We're getting them more frequently.
Yeah, indeed we are, Joe, and I am a little bit surprised by that. Normally the trend that we've seen out of the PRL is we'll get a couple of early cautions, and then as the field thins out a little bit, it'll tend to run a little bit cleaner to the end, and I think just aggression, ambition, everything's starting to take a little bit of a strong effect here at Talladega, and that really starting to affect driver mentalities.
So who are some of our hard chargers in this race? Allie's doing pretty good, going from 22nd to 3rd. How about Chris Hudson, who is 34th, well, was 31st to 9th. He just took a pit stop. So I'm guessing he and a couple others look like they're topping off to try and just be sure that they can get to the end just in case. They do have a green-white checkers for this series, but obviously with them not making it to the race distance, that changes how that works out.
Does indeed. And just interesting note here, Joe, Matthew Long and Taylor Stout both jumped down pit lane together. Now, those are two of the Dirty South drivers. Remember, they were up front early on, really, really strong. They were two of the ones that topped off here. So those may be two to watch out for in terms of fuel distance. If we maybe go green to the end here, don't get another yellow, and drivers are going to need to come down pit lane, those may be two to watch out for.
We're getting estimations that we'll have 29 more laps when we go back to green here. So what will that mean for those that did not stop? Because I'm seeing 16 laps for everybody all the way down from 1st to 13th.
Yeah, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. Like we said, this could come down to a little bit of a fuel strategy race, and not to beat a dead horse, but like I said, I think with Long and Stout, that top-off decision may pay off in spades for those drivers. We'll have to see. I get not wanting to sacrifice track position for the leading drivers right now, but it's going to be interesting to see what the rest of the field can do.
A correction, I think this is actually 22 or so laps left, it looks like. So apologies. Even still, I do think that is going to be a few too many for those that did not stop. That's if it stays green, though. Of course, we could get some more cautions, and that will certainly help them out. But you can't always bank on that. I always like a quote from a former IndyCar driver, Eddie Cheever. He once said that luck is a bad strategy, and I tend to agree. It's good for a roll of the dice, but if you're hoping that it's going to go your way in a number of different ways, then, well, that's not strategizing. That's just praying to the racing gods.
Yeah, I think it was James Hinchcliffe, I remember, talking about luck in driving, and he basically said, if you're relying on luck and superstition to be driving out on track, I don't want to be racing next to you. So very much in similar vein, Joe, you've got to be thinking this out and really doing the numbers here. And that's where the crew chiefs for these teams and the spotters, rest assured, are going to be feverishly doing calculations to see where their drivers will end up on fuel.
All right, are we getting double filers? Okay, I think we are. There was just a number of drivers that were kind of shuffling around in the back that I was watching. I wasn't sure what was going on there, but I think they're now getting into the correct positions. We're going to go racing on lap 59 now. Okay, let's see whether or not we can keep this green this time. We've had a few very quick cautions close to one another, and a couple of them, two of them so far, have been due to bad bumps. Are people getting a little bit more anxious to try and push and get up to the leaders? Or is this just drivers getting weary and losing focus?
I think it could be a little column A, a little column B, Joe. We rode earlier on board with Trent Dinkle. We saw how relaxed he was, but for most drivers in a super speedway situation like this, it is absolutely nerve-wracking. So that anxiety can start to bubble up a little bit and make things a little bit harder.
All right, let's get ready for the restart. We got a special view for this one. Trent Dinkle from the outside of the second row is going to show us what it looks like trying to get the car up to 190 miles an hour here at a super speedway from 58 as you cruise along behind the pace car, which is already in. And we wait for the green flag to wave. He's watching as closely as he can, looking for that 54 car to get going. There's the green flag. And now they start to accelerate away as they pick up speed, coming down towards the incredibly steep banking around this track, all the way up to 33 degrees here.
And indeed, and there's that move again from O'Brien, moving his way down in. Dinkle, just looking like he is getting caught out, not really able. We got a crash in the back.
Oh, no, this might be a big one, too. They're all still stuck together. It looks like many are escaping. Jose Medina, I think, is one of the first I saw involved. The 24. Yeah, he's going to make contact with a couple of drivers. Romero catches it. Looks like Chris Hudson, the 66 of Stout. This could have been a lot bigger. And unfortunately for CM Pennington, the 44 gets a huge hit this time.
And you can see as he drives around there in that 24 machine, just the absolute damage to it. As you said, Joe, this could have been a lot bigger. I saw the big thwunk in the back, and I thought for sure that this was going to be a massive, massive hit that was going to take out the majority of the field. Kind of lucky that we escaped with as little damage as we did, all things considered.
We tried to get into a gap, and then unfortunately, car behind just made the tiniest bit of contact, and he was a pinball from there with multiple cars hitting them. They had not managed to spread out at all. And that last hit that you witnessed, that was Pennington. He really sealed the deal with a T-bone. This is going to set us back behind the pace car yet again, and the clock continues to tick. This probably makes it good for pretty much all of our drivers who are close on fuel from here.
Yeah, my sentiments exactly, Joe. Any alternate strategy that you may have seen run is a little bit negated here at this point, as with this next set of yellow flag laps, I think any of the drivers that opted to stay out should be good. Wouldn't be surprised if we hear a few of them lifting and coasting here a little bit, just backing off the throttle just to make sure, but I think they'll be okay by the time they get back around.
We're looking at another 5 minutes, I think, under caution here before we get going. So we're not going to be green until about 13 minutes to go. This is really bad news for those at the back, although looks like we're getting some pitting to try and get damage repaired. For those who did pit earlier and gave up that track position, they find themselves with fewer and fewer laps to try and work their way to the front. And if we keep getting these cautions coming out before we can even get around to complete a lap, they're not going to really have anything to try and make overtakes out there, which could build, just compound the issue of those yellows.
Yeah, indeed it could. It could really, really not be great as they try to push their way forward, be a little bit more aggressive. That could bring out more and more yellows, and we could just see that sort of spiraling downwards into a negative effect, Joe.
Wow, attrition has been pretty atrocious here, as looks like Self is out. We've also lost Guerra, we mentioned, Patrick Cowgill, Scotty Johnson is out of this race. We have a few drivers that are taking quite a few repairs, especially after that last incident. Looks like Zemke, Pennington, Drew DeWeese is one of them that's been taking repairs for a long time. Chris Hudson and Robert Besaw Jr. In fact, Besaw Jr. has not been back out. So I think we can officially call the three done with this race, because he's not going to get halfway points for that. So there's really no reason for him to return at all. And that leaves us, well, with actually a bit of a question mark on how many cars are left, because I'm not sure which of these are going to try and get back out there on the track here for the finish. And at the most, we're going to have probably in the realm of what looks like about 23, 24 cars that will see the checkered flag.
Yeah, and honestly, Joe, that's a little bit more than I was expecting. Not normally used to seeing that many drivers getting through the field, frankly. I would have expected us to be down a lot more than that, if I'm honest.
All right, well, we get lights out this time by, or we have another one yet to go. Seeing drivers starting to look like they want to get lined up, so I'm guessing that this is going to be the one to go signal from Barney on the flag stands. There's the lights on the pace car, and they are out. So one lap to go. Let's go racing. Let's see if we can take this to the end. We're down to 16 minutes left, and it takes about 2.5 minutes to get to the line. So like I said, we'll see ourselves with about 13.5 minutes on the clock when we get there.
Exactly, and that is going to mean it is absolute charge time. And I think it'll be very interesting to see what the teammates do. Again, we've seen James O'Brien be able to get that very, very good pull down, slotting down into that lower line. Does Ali or McDonald have other thoughts about that this time? Are they going to be a little bit wiser to private label Team Hype's tactics, or are they going to try to hang O'Brien out to dry on the high side and maybe get themselves up a little bit farther?
Here's an interesting note, though. Our top 5 in the finishing order at Atlanta has 3 of them in the top 4 right now. Conker, O'Brien, and McDonald's. Now, of the other 2, we didn't see Brandon Walter show up today, but Abner Acosta looks like he might be our latest DNF because I do not see him in the session right now. So it looks like Acosta has called it a day, although we do not have an official checkered flag next to his name, but him leaving with about 13 minutes to go tells me that he's thrown in the towel for this one. But the cream seems to rise to the top, and we're starting to see some regular faces here in the next gen cup car that seem to have the knack for it.
Yeah, exactly. Despite the fact that it is a new car, the relative physics, and I put that in very, very heavy quotations in terms of relative physics, and the way that it operates are pretty much the same, but the pace car is pulling off, and we're getting ready to go racing, Joe.
All right. Waiting for the green flag for Josh Conker as the pace car is in. Last time, the Team Hype drivers very much went on a signal as they accelerated at pretty much the exact same time. Here we go again, waiting for them to go. And the green flag is out. Looks pretty similar as they accelerate at just about the same time. But this time, O'Brien has got a spot to the inside. He's going to duck down low. Anybody else going to try and get single file here, or what are we going to see? Whoa.
Ooh, a little bit of argy-bargy there in the back. That is the very, very wounded number 24 machine that we saw involved in that last incident. That's Jose Medina. Not looking great out there, causing a little bit of trouble for drivers.
He almost didn't go. I wonder if his engine blew or something there. And, well, no, because he's still rolling, but he's just extremely slow. I have to imagine he's going to be asked to park it from here as we come around to complete a lap under green. And it's going to be O'Brien, or excuse me, Conker, O'Brien, Ali, and Kalen up at the front.
And there you see Dinkle and McDonald trying to work that high line a little bit to see if that will come into play. Getting past the 46 of Regan Jr., just letting it fan out a little bit through the curves. Let's see if they can have anything. And by the way, just a quick note on Jose Medina. I'm hearing it was a missed shift. It was a bad shift for him, and that's why he had such a bad time.
Whoa, going off to the infield, down on the inside of the track. He manages not to lose it. Byron McDonald with an incredible save. We need an onboard replay with the 8. I think this was another bad push, but there goes a potential top 5 for him, unless he gets a caution, because he is no longer with that front group. Here we go.
You heard that exasperation out of me, Joe. A bad push there, catches it, taps from behind, completely sideways, massive opposite lock, and he keeps it pointed the right way. Great job, Byron McDonald.
Dear Lord, I don't know how he held that. Watch this from on board. The car actually leaps up over the bumps for a moment. Almost looked like he got a little bit of air. Somehow keeps it from becoming a wreck. So we stay green, but he settles into 18th because of that. We still have Conker, O'Brien, Ali, Regan Jr., and Kalen up at the front, and the high line is now moving.
It's moving indeed, and it is being headed up by the 46 of Regan Jr. That's Dinkle pushing him, and the number 20 there is Skip Gandy pushing them. So this could be the pull that we may have to go.
Not too shocked to see Regan back up to the front. He may have been hanging around towards the back for much of this race, but he is a many-time previous winner in the PRL NASCAR Cup Series. Likes this new car, it looks like. And let's see if he can return to victory lane here at Talladega. He's getting help from Trent Dinkle behind him, but he's now stalled out at 5th place.
Yes, he is, but Dinka looks like he's got him hooked up on the bump draft, so that may be able to help him a little bit. Here comes some more. That's a move up onto the high line. I believe that's Mark Kalin.
And he did that move with confidence. He's got some great help behind the scenes. He's got multi-time champion Bradley Holly as his spotter right now.
I would love to have Bradley Holly as my spotter in my ear, just telling me where to go and how to go. That would be an immense boon, not only to my driving talent, but just to my ego and my confidence level. So watch out for that 62.
For those, to go back to some of the stuff that DJ was talking about earlier, for those not really understanding, that's basically akin to having Rick Mears and Penske in your ear, just coaching you through those races. And unfortunately, it looks like he's dropping a little bit of speed. Maybe Regan can help him get farther up. Ironically, Regan, a former rival of Bradley Holly for many, many seasons. Down low goes Trent Dinkle. He likes the bottom line. He's going to hook up with Daniels.
He is, and Daniels is going to hope to try to bridge that gap a little bit. He does not want to leave any air between himself and Alley, because that's a perfect opportunity. Here comes Regan to the outside.
No friends. That was Richard Regan trying to, oh, and now it's Regan who's going to pay for it, though. He thought he was going to have people go with him, and he gets hung out to dry. He falls to the back. What about Matthew Long in there? Don't forget, he ran up at the front for much of this race. He's slowly but surely picking his way forward. Is he going to drop down low as well? Yes, he is.
All right, so 3 wide is not going to work around here, and 2 wide barely hanging out just a little bit, but that continues to be Gandy and Kalin there on the high side, but they have lost out a whole bunch of time.
Oh, little bit of a sketchy moment there, both with Kalin, Romero, and I think that was Skip Gandy who had to catch his breath. Thankfully, nobody wrecked, but my goodness, they're doing their best to bring out a caution.
Yeah, they really are, Joe. The back of this pack looking very, very intense. That's Sumner, Walden there. We jump back up to our leaders. There you see O'Brien just poking his nose out there just a little bit. I think that he just trying to cool down the front of that car a little bit, make sure the engine doesn't overheat.
8 minutes left to go. Hope the drivers have a clock up here, because it's certainly not going to complete 22 more laps. They got to be aware of when that white flag is going to be waved and when they need to make the move. As they come around to the start line once again, this will be lap 70 that they start.
It will indeed, but that does not matter. It is much more an issue of timing here for these drivers. We focus back there on the 28 of Matthew Long, trying to work a little bit on the outside.
So they now start to see a little bit of a breakaway back to the 45 of Papineau before you get a little bit of a gap down to Massey and Matthew Long, but it looks like they're going to be able to reel them in. And you can see one of the Dirty South drivers finding his way forward. I think this is Long that we're on board with. Yes, indeed. So he catches back up, and now that is the tail end of the train in 9th place. From there, you have to go back to Mark Kalin, who seems to be struggling after his scary moment not long ago.
Yeah, indeed. Very, very, very tricky there for him, as we see just, let's Long trying to make a move.
The 46 gave a bad push, and that sent Matthew Aubry into the wall hard. Still no caution.
Aubrey's going to pull it down there onto the apron. I think he's going to try to keep this off the track, maybe pull off on the backstretch. Oh, that was a hard hit for Aubry.
Man, there have been a lot of bad pushes here today. So I'm wondering what that's going to do for a number of drivers with potential penalties. Or possibly warnings here today. As we come back around, the bottom line is now once again the way to go, with very few wishing to gamble. I assume that's going to change here in the next couple laps.
Yeah, I think you're going to start to see things getting a little bit feistier. And again, we see there the 28 of Matthew Long trying to push his way forward, trying to make a solo high line work.
No dice. Nobody goes with him, unfortunately. And also they got some lap traffic. DeWeese and it looks like Medina trying to stay out of the way. And in fact, Long tried to steal some draft from them to see if that helped. Nothing doing there, buddy. Long getting a little bit desperate. He's got no friends, it seems. He's going to give another run, poking up to the high side. Still nobody jumping up with him in this group.
No, nobody wants to do it, and I've got to think that time is starting to wind down here for these drivers. They have got to start going for broke here. Somebody's got to be looking at Long going, you know what, it's time to go, let's move.
Right now, though, Conker and O'Brien are the exact same positions they finished Atlanta right now. Will it stay that way? Conker leading, O'Brien trailing, and we're down to 5 minutes left to go in this race. Those behind them have really got to start making moves. They've got to get some track position. And I think Matthew Long is trying to give the bump and the hurry up to Tom Massey back there.
Yeah, I think he is. That is the clearest sign of get a move on as you can possibly give without laying on the horn here for Matthew Long, but nothing doing at all. I see a little bit of a poke out in there. I think that was Baron Hilton maybe thinking about trying to go a little bit high on Trent Dinkle, but decided better of it.
If you give a horn to NASCAR drivers, I cannot imagine what these races would be like. If you think the flashing lights in IMSA are bad, just consider what this would be like. As finally, the 28's got something rolling. He's trying to side draft the 45 as well. Papineau, unfortunately, not willing to give way, and there's just no room for Matthew Long. And once again, he gets sent to the back.
Oh, I thought he had it there. A good slingshot coming around the corner. Is there goes Trent Dinkle now thinking about it a little bit. He's going to fall back into line, though. Maybe that was just a little bit of a way to see if he could get Daniels to maybe fake out a little bit. But this leading pack all just still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in a row.
Long turning into the Sisyphus of the PRL Cup Series here today. Just cannot seem to get that rock up the hill. And still no change amongst the front runners. Conker, O'Brien, Alley, Daniels, Dinkle, your top 5. We are down to 3.5 minutes left to go.
3.5 minutes left to go, and it is now or never time for these drivers, and I think they start to know it. We are not only going to be seeing Matthew Long poking to the high side as we ride on board with Trent Dinkle. I think we're going to see a couple other drivers trying to get a little bit scrappy here.
Oh, and now we get some high lines. Dinkle with Papineau. The 28 sees it. He immediately tries to run up with them, but they are dropping quickly, just getting out of line. Dropped them a massive gap of nearly a second.
It just doesn't look like there
And we got a caution. That'll end it, I believe.
Oh, my goodness.
And I think
gracious.
Long was involved. He's apologizing on the radio. It was indeed. It was contact with a Massey who he had been trying to get going, just hooked him, and that ends the race on a bit of an anticlimactic note.
Indeed, just as it was about to get a little bit spicy there, Joe, the caution comes and denies us of what could have been a fantastic end to this race. Conker, I think he knows it. I can't tell if that's stress or relief.
Hard to say. Don't know if he's got his clock up, but this has to be race over here. And in fact, I think as they come to the line, it should be white flag, because they're not going to have enough to get around for a second one after that. So we'll watch and keep our eye on the clock as they come around turns 3 and 4 here. But it is once again a 1-2 for Team Hype as long as they make it to the finish from here. But is Daniel Alley, who comes in the 666 freshman season for him here in the PRL Cup Series, making use of the unpredictability of Talladega to show that he is potentially one to watch out for.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes that's all you need to have happen is just that little bit of a bump in to get your name on there and get some good momentum rolling for yourself. And that's exactly what Daniel Alley is going to be banking on here. Yep, there, Josh knows it. Josh knows he won now.
Smile on his face, talking with his teammates and coming across the line at 1 minute and 9 seconds to go. So they should be getting the white flag from Barney after that one. And celebrations finally starting inside the cockpit. So Josh Conker is going to start off 2022 with back-to-back wins. Of course, he's still got to get around. And how many are we actually going to see finish this race here? I'm double checking. It's looking like 27 out of 37. So 10 DNFs, if I'm seeing this correctly.
Yeah, again, not nearly as many as I was expecting, Joe, and we really didn't see the big one happen. We saw a couple incidents that collected 4 or 5 cards, but not a whole absolute ending wreck from everyone.
Let's take a look at what caused this last yellow. And that is going to be long on the outside. And yeah, he apologized profusely, saying he thought he was clear. And unfortunately, he was not. Of course, I'm sure Conker doesn't mind too greatly to see this one end prematurely.
No, I'm sure he doesn't, but I'm also not sure that O'Brien, or Alley, or Daniels, or Hilton, or any of the cars behind him would have had much for him. As we saw, it was just so hard to get by around here that I think track position was key for Josh Conker.
That was Tom Massey who had that incident. Amazingly, it wasn't too bad of a hit, apparently, because he's going to finish in 9th, or at least he sits 9th in line right now. So his car is able to trundle along at about 65 miles an hour and managed to get himself at least a top 10 to his stats. I'm sure he's happy about that one. Meanwhile, Josh Conker, who follows behind the pace car, will see the checkered flag unfurled in front of him, allowing the private label Team Hype sister teams of both black and traditional be able to take a back-to-back win, back-to-back 1-2s for their team. Out of the tri-oval, the 54 car comes to the line, and now he can truly celebrate the win here in round 2 of the PRL NASCAR Cup Series.
Crossing over the line to take that checkered flag. Again, it is a dominant performance from private label Team Hype. Again, it is another win for Josh Conker. We've got a little bit of a stake to the championship, I think, here, Joe.
So we might be getting the white flag that time, actually. So I wonder if iRacing had a little bit of a glitch again due to the timed race. So we may have called that one lap too early, where they are waiting in position. And are lights out on the pace car? Lights are out on the pace car. So this is either going to be a one-lap shootout, or I did hear some chatter. Okay, yeah, they are being told not to race. They're being told to hold position. So I believe they are going to lock in the finishing order, even though they will get the green flag. It'll be the checkers when they go by, but they do not want them to change positions on the run through the tri-oval.
Okay, so a little bit of a scary moment for us commentators there, but it will finish exactly as we thought, with Conker and O'Brien and Alley being your podium. Yet another dominant drive for private label Team Hype and private label Team Hype Black. So good runs for them. It's a way to start a season for that team, Joe.
Not too shocked. Both O'Brien and Conker have taken championships in the PRL on the oval side, so they know how to get it done, and certainly starting things off on an excellent note between the pair of them here at the start of this season. So listening, they're being told if they do get one extra lap, it is a one-lap shootout, but if they run to the line and it's the checkered flag, then there is no change for positions in the end. So we'll do our best to cover what that winds up being as the race is over. Yes, there's the checkered flag. So we will not get a one-lap shootout. Drivers trying to get into order very quickly. And Josh Conker now has actually won this race. That's going to take us to a break. We're going to come back with the unofficial results here, and we'll have driver interviews as well, so stick around.
This is iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in endorsed series from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, Aussie Supercars and more. Take on legendary circuits like Daytona, Silverstone and the Nürburgring. Join iRacing's global online racing community and get on track today at iRacing.com.
Welcome back to Talladega. Round 2 in the PRL NASCAR Cup Series saw Josh Conker take the win, followed by his teammate James O'Brien, as we see the 54 now celebrate today's victory. It was Daniel Alley who wound up in third behind them from 22nd on the grid with Josh Daniels, who was fourth. Trent Dinkle finished P5 today. How about Barron Hilton? Qualified 29th. He finished 6th. Matthew Long, our pole sitter, tried his darndest to get someone to hook up at the end, and instead of getting someone to give him a push or get a ride, well, he wound up causing the final caution, which ended the race. He wound up 7th. It was Eric Papineau who was 8th, and it was Amassi who tangled with Long and still got 9th despite hitting the wall pretty hard there at the end. Richard Regan Jr. was 10th.
Coming home in 11th, it was Mark Kalin, followed by Skip Gandy, with Carlos Romero in 13th and Charles Sumner in 14th. Pat Harvey was 15th, followed by Waldo Walden, with Taylor Stout and Byron McDonald 17th and 18th. Jose Medina was 19th, and Bob Clement rounds out your top 20.
And then we get to drivers multiple laps down. It was a lot out there today of those who were just trying to get to the checkered flag and get some valuable points. Luke Christian in 21st, Bladon 22nd, Cervantes 23rd, Taylor Burris, another bad day for him, P24. Got Matthew Aubry in 25th, Cian Pennington in 26th, and James Durr 27th. From there, Mike Witt was 28th, and then everybody on down from there saw themselves on the trailer prematurely with a DNF today. Waiting for a few of our drivers to come in to chat with us after that race. I'm sure we'll have some interesting conversations about that one, because we're already hearing some chatter over the radio post-race, DJ, between people and between race control about some of what happened out there. It seems there were a few unhappy folks, and I'm not too surprised.
No, nor am I, Joe, but that's a little bit of just what happens when you go racing at a big super speedway. Tempers are going to rise up a little bit. Tempers are going to flare up a little bit. And so not entirely surprised by that, but as always, we'll just kind of have to see what ends up shaking out in that post-race stewards review room.
Yep, they have the final say, so we'll see how they consider it in the end. And 2 rounds in, it's been a little bit rough here with the Next Gen Cup car, but there's always going to be teething problems as drivers adapt. This is the first season that the PRL has used this new car, in spite of it being around for a bit. And this is part of why they even said that they were going to use the fixed setup on this one to give people the ability to adapt a bit more of an easement in. And it looks like they'll need it for at least a bit, but I have faith that these guys have the talent to try and start to clean things up as the season goes on. But it looks like it has really tired them out, because we still don't have anybody to come and chat with us yet here in the booth post-race. Hopefully we'll get some people soon to give us an inside scoop on what was going on with that race from inside the cockpit. The difficulties, though, DJ, are certainly not ending, because next round is going to be at Rockingham, and that is going to be an incredibly difficult one. Even in more simpler and basic oval cars, I've seen some absolutely atrocious races at what is an incredibly bumpy track.
Exactly, Joe. And, Talladega, not exactly known for being the smoothest track in the world, but it looks like Indianapolis compared to Rockingham. And so I think that's really going to be a test of drivers' skills. We saw how easy it was for Trent Dinkle to be around here looking very calm and relaxed on a super speedway. I think that's going to be the opposite. I think everybody's going to be white-knuckling that entire time around the rock.
No doubt. We've got Josh Conker ready to talk to us now, our winner for the second time in a row this season. Josh, congratulations. Another win. With it happening and finishing under caution, does that take away a little bit of the joy and excitement for you, or is it still a win is a win?
I mean, a win is a win at this point. It's good to get a win. It's unfortunate that we had to end under caution the way we did. But for my position, like I'm happy it ended under caution because I really didn't want to have a race there. Trent, I know Trent was very racy, and there were a couple guys there back in the pack that were definitely looking to go too wide. We were getting updates on it and just kind of trying to keep tabs on them. But yeah, like from my point of view, I'm much happier to have it finish under caution there and take the win.
It makes sense to me. Speaking of which, you and James now have back-to-back 1-2s here to start things off. But were there plans on eventualities if you did manage to race green to the finish? Did you have a set finishing order or how you would fight one another if it came down to it?
No, there wasn't anything planned or set. James was just very content to stay there and push me. He wasn't really looking to step out of line or do anything too crazy. At the end of the day, we both needed to finish points wise for ourselves and points wise for the team. So just nothing too crazy, just kind of trying to sit there and just kind of push to the end and wait it out. We knew that the race was going to come short. We didn't know how short. We were estimating about 10 laps or so. So we were just kind of sitting there waiting for everyone to make their move to see how everything was going to shake out.
Well, next time out, we're going to Rockingham, a little bit of a blast of the past, but also a notoriously tough track. Are you looking forward to that, or do you feel pretty confident?
I don't even own the track, so it's definitely going to be an interesting one. I got to buy that and put in a lot of work and testing. But yeah, I mean, if I remember correctly, it is on the shorter side of things, and short tracks have been to my they've been more in my wheelhouse. So we'll see how it goes. We'll put the work in, put some laps in, and get accustomed to the track, and hopefully we'll be running up front again next week.
Well, again, congratulations. Is there anybody you want to thank before we let you go?
Yeah, obviously, I'd like to thank everyone back at Private Label Team Hype, Ty Stover, Tommy Milner. I'd like to thank all the teammates, that were working with us tonight. James, Rich, Abner, and Taylor. Unfortunately, Brandon had to miss the race, but hopefully he was watching. He got to enjoy the race himself. I'd like to thank all the sponsors, Private Label, Ethica, and as well as my personal one, Low Palm Design. And I'd like to thank you guys for the broadcast.
That was Josh Conker in the 54 car taking the victory here today at Talladega. Up next, DJ is caught up with his teammate James O'Brien, who was the bridesmaid for the second time.
I have indeed, James. 2 races, 2 second places to Josh Conker, but you've got to feel pretty happy with that one coming through like this. It seemed like it was a pretty tricky track to get past on, and you were able to move your way up through the field.
Yeah, I really didn't know what to expect with this car here. My finishes at super speedways are usually really good, but I really don't enjoy racing them, and I was kind of going in dreading it, which is really not a good attitude to have. But it felt like I was just waiting the whole race to do something, and it never came. So I really don't know if I even had a strategy. Obviously, if the race went green to the end, I probably would have tried something on Josh, but yeah, I was happy with second place. It shook out with pit strategy and everything.
Well, it looked throughout the majority of the race that high line was just absolutely nowhere. Did you have any thoughts of going up there at any point, or was it pretty much just hug the yellow line and that'll keep you going forward?
A few times they had quite a good run, but everybody would get impatient. You can't really rely on 10 people to have the same game plan for as long as you. So the safer bet's always the bottom, because that's where everybody falls. So I always just say, just stay at the bottom. When somebody gets impatient and they go up high, you take their spot and then kind of keep moving up one by one by one. And that's sort of how it worked out for me, going from 6th to 2nd. I really, the only time I would have went up there is if it was like a last lap pass and I had Richard or somebody behind me or another friend behind me.
Gotcha. Well, we head to a little bit of a different track next time out in the form of Rockingham. We just talked to your teammate Josh. He doesn't even own the track. Are you a little bit more familiar with it? And if you are, how do you think it's going to go?
I probably shows my age, but I raced that track in like 1994 on the first NASCAR game on PC. I was really little, but I'm fairly familiar with it. We raced there last year. I think I finished top 5 like I usually do. Mr. Consistency, you know, but I like it. It's a fun track. It's interesting. It's different. There's nothing else like it on the circuit, so I kind of enjoy it. I don't know really how good I am there, but I mean, this whole season's going to be a great unknown with this car.
Well, even with the great unknown, 2 second places is a good way to start off the season. Anybody you want to thank for the run here today?
Yeah, everybody that was watching, you guys for broadcast and PRL for putting on a hell of a league. Everybody back home watching Tommy Milner, Ty Stover, Richard Regan. He was under the weather today, so good thing he wasn't up in the booth because he probably would sound like crap. Abner, Taylor, and Josh for winning. And Ethica and Private Label for being on the car.
Well, thank you so much. That was James O'Brien, your second place finisher here today. Joe?
Looks like that's going to close out our interviews, so we want to give a big thank you to our sponsors before we go, which includes ASR. They design and build the sturdiest and most durable aluminum profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. Visit them at advancedsimracing.com. And RaceLab. It helps you to improve your driving skills. Start using it now for free at racelab.app. And ButtKicker. Feel what you've been missing at thebutkicker.com. And finally, NinjaTrader. Visit ninjatrader.com and get started with a risk-free trading simulator to start tracking your performance. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed on your screen, and additional thanks to Julie Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. Check out her Bandcamp for more great work. Thanks to the team today, DJ Zach and Dougie. You can find more info about GSRC at globalsimracingchannel.com or through our social media. Also, check out our merchandise store at simracingmerch.com/GSRC. We keep a link in the description below. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment. As we mentioned, the next race is at Rockingham, Sunday, January 9th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. But we have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. And until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.